with LG Electronics, digitally yours. Now, all revved up for more red-hot motorsport, it's the LG Super Racing Weekend with
Yokohama, power of performance.
Now on Eurosport, cars you see on the road every day, but you've never seen them go like this. It's the FIA European Touring Car Championship.
With KW, the sports shock absorbers specialist.
Welcome to round 6 of the LG Super Racing Weekend. We're at Oschersleben near Magdeburg in eastern Germany, the circuit that was opened to international motorsport in 1998 by the FIA GT Championship. And the series returns. This afternoon's action will bring you both races from the European Touring Car Championship. BMW on home territory for the first time and with the upper hand on the tight and twisty track. Well, here is the motor park Oschersleben. It's in the former east of Germany, 2 hours southwest of Berlin. And it's a slow and tight circuit, difficult to learn for first-timers. And that too has helped BMW. 3 long 180-degree corners, a chicane, backstretch, and a long front straight. Well, reasonably long front straight, but it does mean it's not got very many high-speed corners. And those long constant radius turns, the first 3 big corners, really play into the hands of the rear drive cars, and that means BMW. And BMW led the field in qualifying with Tom Coronel in the sole Team Great Britain car this weekend on pole position. And Frederick Ekblom, Dirk and Jörg Müller in the top 4 with 5 BMWs in the top 6. Only Rickard Rydell's Volvo in 5th spot, getting in between them on the grid. And Rydell in 5th place in the championship. Disappointed, of course, not to have won last time out in Sweden. Good afternoon, I'm Martin Haven, alongside me, Jamie Davis. And Jamie, we've already seen in qualifying that the changes to the number of revs that the BMWs can use, the slight variations in the weight limits, but I think most importantly, this twisty track has really played into the hands of the rear drive BMWs.
Yeah, for sure. These long 180 corners are definitely playing in the hands for the BMW, just because they have the superior traction out of the corners. And that aside, it just helps the BMW just get the power down, carry the speed onto the next straight, which then gives them the advantage.
Well, now, the last time you raced here was in Formula 3000 in the pouring rain. It's a little overcast in eastern Germany this weekend, but at least it is dry, which I'm sure they'll be very thankful for. But it is not a high-speed track in any way, shape or form. Now, the grid forming up with the BMW on pole position for the first time. It's Tom Coronel, the Carly Motorsport entry for Team Great Britain. See the blue Nissan further back on the right-hand side. And that, of course, is Tommy Rustad. He starts on the outside of row 6. And away go the BMWs. They get the power down much better than the front drive cars, because as the weight is transferred back under acceleration, that loads up the driven wheels. And it's 5 BMWs into the corner ahead of the Volvo. And a 6 goes through past... and that is James Hansen in the second Volvo. His car heavily damaged in Sweden. He's actually driving the 3rd Volvo chassis, which was entered by Flash Engineering for Jans Edman in Sweden. And now the leader is not the poleman, Sandro Sardelli. No, it's Salvatore Tavano's Honda Civic Type R, car you're very familiar with in road trim, that is tangled in there. But it's not the poleman that leads, because Coronel pushed down into 2nd place by Frederick Ekblom, the Swede, who leads us around the first lap.
Already you can just see that the BMWs there, they're pushing on very hard. Just see Ferrier there, looks like he's got a front right end damage to the car, so that's probably the end of his race.
Well, that's a shame. Tom Ferrier qualified pretty well up the grid as well, and he was going reasonably quickly in this morning's warm-up as well, not as quickly as he'd qualified, but looks like he's struggling to make it back to the pits. Coronel in second place. He's under pressure, though, with Dirk and Jörg Müller behind. Jörg Müller with 30 kilos of success ballast. And further back, Ricard Rydell right on the tail of that lead group of BMWs. So too the Alfa Romeos. That's Nicola Larini as we watch from... we are with Nicola Larini as we watch Fabrizio Giovanardi, his teammate. And Jamie, Alfa making a very big play about the fact that the changes in regulations have seen them now not just mingling with the BMWs, but humbled by them here. But I think they're overstating the mark a little bit.
Well, it seems to have kind of have changed the tables a little bit. Obviously, beforehand the BMWs were struggling against the Alfas in the first couple of races. Now it's all changed around. You've got the BMWs who are pushing out front, and the Alfas who perhaps are struggling a little bit now. But I think probably you'll find it's a couple more races down the road. You'll get a couple of circuits which will tend to suit the Alfa again with the higher top speeds, and I think before long you'll see them back at the front, certainly challenging the BMWs.
Definitely, I think that Alfa have really overplayed the card there. I think that with no rule changes whatsoever, you would probably have seen the BMWs mingling with the Alfas here, because it is just the circuit that most suits them. Next time out, they go to Spa-Francorchamps, and I expect to see a very much more level playing field. Ekblom leading then from Dirk Müller. Tom Coronel down in third place, Dirk Müller in the 43 car. The man who is BMW's leading light in the series at the moment in terms of points, and he has been a very, very competitive young man in this championship, normally duffing up the Alfas and the Volvo, but at the moment it's an all BMW battle out front. And Fredrik Ekblom, well, he's got this taste of the lead, and I don't think the Swede will be very keen to give it away.
You can see already from this it's going to be incredibly tough to try and make a move at the inside to try and get through. It's probably going to be maybe a slight tap as they're going one of the corners to try and get at the inside, because it's just so tight and twisty. Being able to get a run on the car in front is incredibly difficult.
I have to say, from my experience of him in 4 years of the American Le Mans series, of all the drivers that I've met who are cynical, Dirk Müller definitely doesn't appear on that list. He will force a mistake or try and find half a gap in the closing laps, but he's not a tap them up the backside, watch them spin off as you take the lead kind of a guy. So I think we'll be looking for a close race. The other thing, of course, is the one thing that the German drivers or German factory drivers particularly understand is the way the game is played. It's much more important as a German BMW driver, particularly as a German BMW driver, but as a driver for a factory, that your factory car wins the race rather than you personally win the race. And that's the way the game is played, and they all understand that. So if Ekblom is still in front coming into the final corner and doesn't make a mistake, he's going to win. Muller's not going to be stupid enough to punt him off, I don't think.
No, it's going to be very tricky, difficult situation to be in, but obviously every driver wants to win, but you've got to just look at the situation, obviously, and try not to take each other off, but ultimately they want to win.
Well, further back, the Alfa's being pushed further and further down. Incidentally, apologies for the lack of position graphics. What we've got at the moment is Ekblom leading as we ride with Dirk Müller, Tom Coronel and Jörg Müller third and fourth, Ricard Rydell fifth place, and then behind him we have got Jordi Genet and Fabrizio Di Simone, the two Spanish BMW team cars, both having overtaken the Alfa Romeos, and that's the first time all year such a phrase has been possible to have been used, apart from in the first few yards after a start where you line up behind an Alfa and a BMW. But the Alfas are in trouble here, well, not exactly good to see it, but it's certainly important for the championship's continued health that we do not have total domination by just one kind of car, because otherwise it just becomes a one-mark formula, and nobody is particularly interested in joining in. So 3 laps in, it's BMWs and the Volvo in the top half dozen. Giovanardi in 7th, Larini in 9th place, Tommy Rustad behind them. Welcome back to Oschersleben, round 6 of the European Touring Car Championship, the first race. Poleman Tom Coronel under pressure for 3rd place. We ride with Dirk Müller in 2nd. Fredrik Ekblom from the outside of the front row of the grid leads this race. There's Coronel in 7. Right behind him, Jörg Müller gets into the brakes. Don't forget Jörg Müller with 30 kilos extra weight for his success in Sweden. And Coronel off the road.
Looks like they've done exactly what I said.
Well, Jamie Davis was saying that a bit of a cynical tap might be put in, and looks like Jörg Müller either cynical or misjudged it there. But Coronel Jamie not up to speed at all, being passed by Tommy Rustad and the two Alphas here, and going very slowly indeed. I wonder whether that was maybe not Jörg Müller catching him fast, but maybe... look, now Coronel very heavily over the curbs in the chicane, and he said that when he tried that in qualifying, he actually broke the suspension on the car. He's now going very slowly. I wonder if that could possibly have happened again.
It's definitely a possibility. I didn't get a full look at the car, not really then, just to see if any bits were broken, but...
well, as we picked him up, he was certainly coming down off the curbs, and he was moving very slowly. So whatever, he's no longer in third place. The Schnitzer cars second and third, but Roberto Ravalia's driver is leading. Ravalia with a smile on his face here at Oschersleben, really for the first time all year. It's been a little bit of under the cosh for Ravalia's team, from not only the Carli Motorsport and the Schnitzer drivers, but of course also from the Alfa Romeo drivers and the Volvos. But at the moment, holding on out front, but not by very much, is Fredrik Ekblom. And Jamie, we saw yesterday's Formula Renault race, very, very hard in identical cars to find a way to pass here. Maybe in a touring car you've got a little bit better chance though.
Yeah, for sure. It's not going to be such a big problem, purely because you've got the bodywork on the car, so that you can afford to actually perhaps maybe make a bigger lunge on the inside of the corner, because when you're in an open wheel car, obviously if you touch wheels, then you're going to be going off the track, but with the bodywork, then you tend to just rub and hopefully both get through the corner, but you might be able to make the move and pass.
Well, as they say in NASCAR, rubbin's racing, and there is definitely a better chance of taking a slightly risky move down the inside, but this is a tight and twisty circuit, no really long straights, and even the chicane here doesn't slow the cars down much, because that's a one line through there as well. You certainly, unlike somewhere like Alton Park or Donington, you have got no around the outside chances at the chicane there, and so you just have to follow Melida through and ramp it over the curbs and hope the guy in front does it a little too hard.
Just looking at Dirk's car just for a couple of those corners, then it's definitely looking like it's working better than Ekblom's at front at the moment. Dirk just seems to have a little bit better balance on the car. It seems to have a little bit more mechanical grip, and I think it's the faster car at the moment.
But the problem, of course, of this Oschersleben circuit is you can be quick, but you have to be a bit quicker than that to actually get by. Closing stages of the race, and Müller, well, you've got to give him credit for sticking to his task. He's never been more than half a car length away from the tail end of that machine. Now we ride with Rickard Rydell, I believe, and he is chasing the BMWs. That offbeat growl of the 5-cylinder Volvo. Part of the new regulations package has been a freeing up of the engine rev limits as Dirk Müller again looks around the back of Fredrik Ekblom for the race lead. The BMWs with 6 cylinders have been allowed to go up from 8,500 to 9,000 RPM. 5-cylinder Volvo goes up from 8.5 to 8,750. Tom Walkinshaw's ProDrive crew basically say, well, it may as well not bother even changing the rev limit, because we can't adapt the engine enough to make use of 250 extra revs. They do feel in the BMW camp, though, because they've used this 6-cylinder motor in so many different variations, that they have actually got a better hold on it. And again, Jamie Davis, that telltale lock-up there shows that Ekblom's car is working harder than Muller's. And you're right, Dirk Müller does seem able to take a tighter line through most of the corners and is always looking around in the mirrors.
Yeah, you can just see that, that Dirk's able to turn in just fractionally earlier than Ekblom. The car just seems to be moving around a lot more for Ekblom at the moment. He seems to be struggling a bit more. He's got a bit more understeer as he's going into the corners, and it pivots to oversteer on the exit.
And a squeal of brakes as Müller goes down the inside. There was contact between them. Dirk Müller was definitely shaping up just as they went out of camera shot into the right and left that almost end the lap, the last 3 or 4 turns. He comes out now, but that's a bit of a shame, because he made contact with Ekblom, and he comes out in the lead. His Schnitzer teammate Jörg Müller in second place. Let's replay it from on board. Now, he was really picking up speed in the toe down the inside, but Ekblom right up to the apex, and they just hold on second contact, and that may have caused damage to Ekblom's right front.
I tell you, Martin, it's a good job that these BMW drivers don't want to take each other off.
Well, as soon as you say it, it's bound to happen, isn't it? However, he was definitely having a look at the inside, and you know, I was about to actually to ask you when we were on the previous onboard shot, you know, at what stage towards the end of the race, if you had sussed a place where you thought your car was stronger, would you go? Would you leave it until the last lap, or would you give yourself maybe a second chance at it and sort of do it a couple of laps before the end?
It's a difficult call, but the problem is, as a driver on this type of circuit, you understand it's very difficult to overtake. Ekblom had Dirk right behind him. He knew that he was obviously quicker, or able to stay with him at least anyway. So I'd imagine he was half expecting Dirk to be making a move. So really he should have, although Dirk Muller wasn't quite fully up the inside, I think Ekblom should have been a little bit more aware that Dirk was there, maybe just giving him a slight bit of room. And the next corner was a left-hander anyway, so he would have probably held on and kept the lead, but wasn't to be.
Well, I agree. A little bit of racing room would probably have saved Ekblom's position in the race, maybe even allowed him to keep the lead, but certainly would have allowed him to finish in the points. So, yeah, a very valid point. He certainly went right for the apex with no doubt about it. And in fact, even on the previous onboard camera shot, you can see, yeah, black and white flag about Dirk Muller's driving, I'm sure, being shown, yeah, to the 43 car. He's been warned about his driving standards. Well, that was a racing incident. I really don't think you can have too much of a problem with that. Volvo up to third place now as the BMW's lead. Closing stages of the European Touring Car Championship, 12 laps into this race at Oschersleben in Germany. This is the 6th LG Super Racing weekend. This is round 11 of the series, and Dirk Muller leading from compatriot teammate in the Schnitzer team BMW, Jörg Muller. Dirk Muller having chased Fredrik Ekblom all the way through the race, dived down the inside of him just before this corner a couple of laps ago, and Ekblom, well, perhaps rather foolishly shut the door completely on him. There was contact, a second contact. Muller's still going, Ekblom isn't. But it looks as though there's been changes behind while we've been watching the battle for the lead. Certainly Jörg Muller in second place, third place Ricard Rydell, fourth Fabrizio Giovanardi, because he managed to get past this man in the BMW, Jordi Jannet, which his teammate Nicola Larini has not yet. Larini, since lap 2, and we're now after 13 laps of this race, looking at the same situation with Larini between Di Simone and Jordi Jannet. The two Spanish drivers have had Larini bottled up between them all the way through. I have to say I'm astonished that Larini hasn't just tapped him out of the way yet. Maybe the Alfa never quite catches the BMW with enough speed, but that is very much Nicola's modus operandi. Now let's ride on board and see if he proves me right or wrong. It is a difficult circuit, though. The BMWs in the long, constant radius corners, Jamie, the front wheels only have to steer, the rear wheels are pushing the car around. For the Alfas and for the Nissans, for the Volvo as well, they're having to work doubly hard because they're trying to transmit the power and hang on around the corner. And basically, the more power you put through, the less ability they have to hang on through the steering. So Larini's tyres are probably going off as well in comparison to the BMW. Yeah,
definitely. I'd say the BMW tyre is going to last longer. The biggest problem the front-wheel drive cars have on this type of circuit is just sheer understeer with the car, trying to get on the power from mid-corner to the exit, and obviously doing the steering as well. They need the traction. And here's the checkered flag.
Checkered flag for Dirk Muller. It's a 1-2 for the Mullers, 1-2 for Schnitzer team BMW. So Charlie Lamb will be a very happy bunny with that.
Jörg Muller will be very happy with that one. Yes, carrying the 30-kilo ballast, it's a good result. And also, yeah,
the only problem, of course, is that he'll end up with a whole load of ballast for next race as well. However, Rydell in third place, better than perhaps he might have expected after qualifying.
It's a good result.
Very good result, but he was second quickest in the morning warm-up. That's pretty interesting as well, because he's carrying success ballast. He's got 10 kilos on board after Sweden. But that's BMW's second race win of the season. They took their first with Jörg Muller last time out a fortnight ago in Sweden. Now Dirk Muller gets a score on the board as well in terms of maximum points. Rydell also on the podium. But the Alfas, well, Nicola Larini will be on pole in the reversed top 6 on the grid, and right behind him, third on the grid, will be Giovanardi. So it'll be interesting to see whether the BMWs can get in front of them at the start, because if they can't, well, it could be a bit of a race of attrition. They'll have to pressure the Alphas into using up their tyres before the end of the race.
It's going to be interesting. That's going to be the biggest problem for the Alphas on the start of the second race, is again the traction coming off the line. They really need to try and hold that position going into the first corner. If not, then it's going to be very difficult to make the move back.
Be interesting to see how this man, Dirk Muller, fares, because he, of course, has no success ballast, but he will be in 6th place. He will be desperate to get past those Alphas before the end of the race and hopefully give BMW another 1-2 in Germany. Welcome back to Oschersleben. Cars on the grid for the second race in the European Touring Car Championship. This is round 12 of the series. Nicola Laurini's Red Alfa at the front of the grid. Directly behind him, line astern, Fabrizio Giovanardi, because they were 4th and 6th respectively in the first race. And that has helped the championship situation a little bit. Dirk and Jörg Muller, 1st and 2nd in that order, close a little on Laurini and championship points leader Giovanardi. So Dirk Muller now only just about 50 points adrift of the series leader halfway through the championship. But Jamie Davis, it is interesting. Well, I think particularly Oschersleben here is helping this tight and twisty circuit to see a bit of a mix-up with the drivers at the front of the grid. Right, now then, let's go down to the grid, find out who we can talk to.
You took the lead on the last 4 laps, so how was the race, and do you think it's due to the new regulation?
I'm really happy to have my first victory this season for BMW and Team Schnitzer. Here in Germany, it's a special, you know, feeling to win the race. So I'm quite happy. Now I'm in 6th position, and I'm looking forward. I mean, I do have new tires for the race, and I think I will have a chance.
And you got a warning when you overtook Egland.
For me, it's you know, it was not my purpose to get the contact with Freddie. It was really a hard and fair race. We were leading the race, and then I tried. He closed the door. I tried to be inside on the grass, not to hit him, but then finally I hit him. So I'm really sorry. I just went to him and said sorry for it. It was bad luck.
Thank you.
Well, Dirk Muller saying very much, Jamie, what we thought was that there was definitely no intention to punt Ekblom off, and the door was very firmly shut, which is a shame really for Freddie Ekblom, because 2nd place would have been his best result of the year, and I'm sure he could have held on for that. Here's Jörg Muller, the two Mullers not related in any way, shape or form, despite the fact that they are both driving for the same team. And both BMWs 5th and 6th on the same row of the grid. Ahead of them, Rickard Rydell. You can see him 2nd back there in the Volvo on the right-hand row. And it is car 6, Fabrizio Di Simone, who starts on the outside of the front row. Di Simone, the better of the two BMW Team Spain cars. Jordi Genet starts in 7th place. And they were bracketing Nicola Laurini at the end of the race, but Laurini, by virtue of being 6th, starts on pole because the top half dozen in race 1 are inverted on the grid for race 2. So Laurini starts ahead of Giovanardi as they line up line astern. But the problem again for the Alphas is getting off the line. The problem for Dirk Muller, though, is that not only has he got to worry about the Alphas, but also the front drive Volvo right in front of him. So potentially 3 slower cars blocking the track, and he and his teammate trying to get through between them. It could be a bit of a bottleneck going into the first corner.
That's right, yeah. You see Di Simone just sat there then. Obviously, he's feeling fairly confident with the rear-wheel drive pulling away off the line. Hopefully get the first corner.
He should be in the lead.
Nicola Laurini, you're starting this race on the pole position. Do you think we'll be able to win on the BMW?
It's quite impossible. We have a lot of penalty since last race, after the last race, so I have also 20 kilo more than the other. It's impossible to I try it, but it's impossible to maintain, and I don't like this situation. It's unbelievable.
Thanks.
So the company policy being run firmly up the flagpole there by Nicola Laurini. Of course, he has 20 kilos of extra ballast because he fared so well last time out in Sweden. And he obviously doesn't like that. But he is right, he is 50 kilos heavier comparatively than he would have been without the rule changes compared to his BMW opposition. He's not the worst off, though, because the Volvo of Rickard Rydell, they reckon, is 55 kilos heavier as regards the BMW than it would have been otherwise, because they actually haven't managed to get it right down to the weight. They can't take any more weight off it. So it's right down at the minimum weight limit. Anyway, this Oschersleben track is the one that BMW have been looking forward to as a place where they can take the battle to the Alfa Romeos, particularly because it does really suit their rear drive chassis compared to the front drive chassis of the Alfas. The Alfas like fast corners with big, like constant radius sweeps, and they like long straights where they can just select top gear and drive past everybody else. And it's not fair on Nicola Larini that there aren't any of those kind of corners or long straights here, so tough luck. Starting from the pit lane is the German driver Thomas Klenker in his Ford Focus, this ST170, racing in the German Touring Car Championship at the moment, which is a sort of Group N series in Germany, and they've had 3 races here at Oschersleben this season. He's won all of them so far in the Focus, and the team coming here and also going to Spa as a preemptive strike, if you like, before joining in next year's European Touring Car Championship. They're hoping to do that. This is the first Ford entry in a European touring car race since the dominance of the RS500 Sierra Cosworths back in the height of the 80s. Well, there's our grid with Larini, Di Simone, Giovanardi and Rydell ahead of the Mullers, and then Jordi Genet and Luis Villamil, the Spaniard in the best of the privateer Alfa Romeos. And behind them we have Eric Cairol in his Alfa, the Frenchman, of course, a long-time BMW driver. Then Sardelli in the Honda Civic, which seems more like a reliable car at the moment. And Fredrik Ekblom, well, starting ahead of James Hansen, who was off in the first run down to the first few corners. He got tangled up with somebody in his Volvo and failed to finish the race. So behind Sardelli and Ruberti are all the non-finishers. James Ferrier, unfortunately, failed to finish race 1. He will not start race 2. We saw heavy damage on the front of his Alfa GB car in the first lap, and he made it back to the pits, but I'm afraid no further. Well, Dirk Muller, Jamie Davis was talking about having new tyres. He's weaving around to try and keep a bit of temperature in them, because as you can see from the pictures, it's pretty cool and overcast at Oschersleben. But I guess maybe a little bit of wheel spin, bit of a practice start a couple of times out of a slower corner, maybe to keep the rear wheel tyres all hooked up as well.
Yeah, sure, they'll all be going round now, just trying to generate as much heat into the tyres as possible. Also trying to generate some heat into the brakes as well on the lap going to the grid. This also just heats the wheel up, which then heats the carcass of the tyre up as well to try and maintain the heat into the tyre while they're standing on the grid. We just now have to see what happens on the start now, just to see if the Alfas can get away first into the first corner, or whether it's going to be another BMW dominance.
Well, it's going to be threading the eye of a needle, really, for the BMWs, for Dirk and Jörg Muller, who are on the third row of the grid with 3 front drive cars immediately in front of them, and only Fabrizio Di Simone in his rear-wheel drive BMW on the front row of the grid. So, yes, it's a potential hazard, definitely, for them. There you see the rest of the cars forming up behind as we are ready to go. One pit lane starter, remind you, Thomas Klenker in the Ford Focus, but on the front row of the grid, Nicola Larini and Fabrizio Di Simone, with Fabrizio Giovanardi, the runaway points leader, lining up third place. Can they keep the BMW out of the way? Can they make it Alfa 1-2 into the first corner? Quick change for the green lights. Look at Sandro Sardelli coming up the middle in the Honda Civic Type R. Di Simone blasts away, and BMWs everywhere trying to find a way past the Alfas. That looked like Jörg Muller. Was that Jörg Muller? I think. Oh! And is that Giovanardi off? I think that was Fabrizio Giovanardi. Spun out of the first turn. Well, Giovanardi was desperately trying to keep as many cars as he could behind him. I think that'll be Larini in second place, with Rydell down in 5th place, and BMW, well, the 2 Schnitzer cars right behind Larini, and already Dirk Muller tapping Larini's back bumper on the straight there, going, come on, get out the way. Jörg Muller, I think, comes around past him.
Actually. Oh, it's Dirk just
this is Dirk Muller now, but Jörg Muller, I think you might have been right, actually, because Dirk Muller, I think, just passed Jörg Muller, who got held up by Larini. Through the chicane, look how much he catches. Just a little opposite lock grab there as the cooler rear tyres start to step out under power. But look at Di Simone go. There is the difference between the BMW and the Alfa Romeo right there.
I'm not sure what De Simone's lap times are like compared to Dirk and Jörg Müller, but obviously he realises that these first couple of laps are a big chance now. If De Simone can just edge out a slight lead over the Alpha in these couple of laps while you've got Dirk and Jörg who are stuck behind Larini at the moment, then he may well be able to hold that to the flag.
Well, he was only 10th fastest in qualifying, and another Alpha goes off. I think that is Luis Villamil, in fact, or Eric Cairol. That looks like Villamil behind with the red and yellow of the Spanish flag. It is Eric Cairol. He's gone off as well, and he was in a three-way battle with Tommy Rustad and Sandro Sardelli in the Honda Civic Type R. And Rustad continues there in the blue Nissan, but it looks like we've lost Sardelli. Rydell behind the BMWs of the Mullers. Ooh, and somebody locking up heavily under braking, and it was Dirk Müller trying desperately not to go up the backside of Nicola Larini. The Alpha really struggling here, and with an enormous bottleneck behind. Goodness me, look, it almost looked like the BMW was going to pull out and drive past in a straight line, and that really would have been, yeah, that would have been rubbing his nose in it, wouldn't it? So Villamil, Rustad, Hansen, Tavano, Coronel, Bernardoni. We have lost our championship points leader. Now, I don't have all the races written down in front of me. That might be the first time that Fabrizio Giovanardi has not finished a race all year. And that would be, well, that would definitely be a big turn up for the books. So Larini, Dirk Müller, then Jörg Müller behind him. And Jamie, you wonder now how long this will last, because down here particularly, this is a nice long run down the back straight. Muller's got to be good on the brakes here. Yellow lights are on.
The one thing that Dirk's going to have to be a little bit careful, I'd say now, is obviously the overtaking manoeuvre which was done in the first race of Ekblom, in the contact which was made. Then the stewards are probably going to be watching Dirk now just to make sure that he has a clean second race. Otherwise he may well get into some trouble.
I'm sure they will be watching him, but then on the other hand, if they actually watched the tape of the first incident, I think they will find that there was no call to answer. But unfortunately for Dirk, his favoured passing place at the end of the back straight, the yellow lights are on, because as we saw, Thomas Klenker's Ford, which has survived the whole German touring car season without any problem, succumbing here transmission-wise because the engines are more powerful and they've got grippier tyres than in the DTC here in the European Touring Car Championship. But Dirk Müller is really, really struggling not to run over Nicola Larini, isn't he?
Just see the sheer drive then of the BMW, the traction exiting the corner is just right up behind Larini there.
Now, as a driver yourself, and obviously having come up the single-seater route, you can see him like fighting around the back end of the car. It looks like a pretty entertaining car to be driving, actually.
They're very exciting, actually. We've done some testing with the Edenbridge BMW team this season in the super production class of the British Touring Car Championship, and it's basically a very, very similar car to the BMWs which are running here today at Oschersleben. Great fun to drive. Lots of different ways that you can push them on through the corners and drive very aggressively, but in the same time you need to be quite smooth as well to carry the corner speed. But even so, just a very entertaining car.
Yellow lights still on here as they come to this right-left, and it's a shame because that is a really good BMW overtaking opportunity, as we saw earlier on. Jörg Müller all over the back of Dirk Müller, and Larini, well, onboard camera from him shows how hard he's working. Dirk Müller shows him the nose on the inside, doors open. Jörg Müller will go through as well, no question about it. Look, he'll be welded to the back bumper of Dirk Müller's car, but no, Larini is such a canny old fox. He somehow manages to keep Jörg Müller behind. But you're right, now look at the power of the Alpha though. Weight or no weight, extra revs or no extra revs, Müller was past him. Now look at that, that was sensible racing. He gave him room to come through, but I think he's paid for it. Yeah, Jörg's on the inside, Rydell's there as well, and that's the problem for the BMW too, because they don't want to hold each other up. Now Dirk Müller, obviously, who would like to win this battle. Jörg Müller goes through in front of him though. Well, maybe it's time now for Dirk to sit for a lap or two, hold off Rydell, and see if he can allow Jörg Müller to unsettle Larini. But, well, coming onto the front straight, he'd made the move and made it stick, but still on that short straight, the power of the Alpha was enough to pull it back in front.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's good driving by Dirk Müller there. Just there going into the left-hand corner. He knew that Larini was looking back to the inside. Had he have turned in and not given Larini any room, then probably he would have been off onto the grass. So just moving over a little bit, he's given a little bit more room. See Jörg there just trying very, very hard, lots of opposite lock, trying to get on the power. It's actually possibly cost him, I think it has, maybe at the inside again.
I think Dirk's come down the inside. And he's done the move before they get to this left and right sequence. I think the yellow lights are off there now. Yellow flags are off, so well, he'd made the move on the straight anyway, so it wasn't a question of passing him under the yellows anyway. Rydell there sort of on his own, not quite with the speed of the Schnitzer team, and again same corner.
He's got him.
But he goes in deeper this time, and he's got him again. Now, Jürgmüller is right beside Larini, behind us now. Yeah, the problem is, though, Larini still can keep the inside line ahead of Jürgmüller into this first corner, which, of course, is a left-hander. But can he...
Same situation for Jörg now as what Dirk had the lap before.
Yep.
But Jörg's just holding it. Can he stop the car now? No.
Now a chance for Rydell to come through and take both of them on the inside. Has he got the traction? Yes, he has. Look at that. The Volvo hooked up very well indeed. So Dirk Müller in second, Jürgmüller down to fourth place now, ahead of Larini, but this is Fabrizio, this is De Simone's teammate, Jordi Genet, trying to come round. Larini going further and further down the order, and he's now, look, boxed in front, right and rear by BMWs.
That's a good race.
It is a good race. Great defensive driving by Larini, I have to say. You know, he's really stuck to it, and the tyres on the Alfa must be starting to give up a little bit under such intense pressure. He's really, really using them for all he's worth, holding off the BMWs as long as possible. And here is where, well, Jürgmüller had got into trouble over the first corner curbs, over the second corner curbs, actually. Sort of bumped into Larini, and they all tripped over each other. Rydell comes through as well. And, well, inevitable contact there, 3 cars on 1 racing line, but I don't think anything cynical going on in any of those manoeuvres at all. That was great saloon car racing. On board with Rydell, Jürgmüller behind him. We saw Jürgmüller open up the Volvo in the closing stages at Anderstorp.
Jürg's going wide, trying to get a run on, maybe on the exit.
Rydell almost won at Anderstorp in the first race, and in the last corners of the last lap, Jürgmüller opened up the inside line as the Volvo washed out wide, and the superior front-end grip of the BMW just saw him safely through 3 corners from home to take his and BMW's first win of this European Touring Car Championship.
This is where the BMW is normally strong out of this corner, normally gets good traction here.
They do get hooked up.
Now. Just trying to go wider and trying to cut back in on the exit to try and get a cleaner exit than the Volvo to try and power on, but it's very, very tight, very, very difficult at the moment.
Volvo does have very good traction, it seems, off the medium speed corners, and clearly here from Oschersleben off the slower stuff as well. And there's certainly nothing too much wrong with the Volvo's chassis. They could perhaps use a little bit more power, and perhaps in time engine development will give them a little bit more. They're certainly working towards that. But look at the BMWs up front. Fabrizio De Simone, leader since the green lights, under pressure, and I don't think he'll be leading by the end of the lap. Dirk Müller has caught him and is coming by him, and that, I'm afraid, is probably the end of it for De Simone in the BMW Team Spain car.
Easy.
Well, he made it look easy, didn't he? There hasn't been an easy pass so far this weekend in the touring cars. That was about the easiest of the lot. But there again, you see, De Simone could have tried to contest that, couldn't he? But I think perhaps he thought, well, no, second place would be by far and away our best result of the year.
That's right.
Let's go for it.
I think De Simone knew that right from the beginning, that his golden opportunity was to really try and break away on those first couple of laps while you had Jörg and Dirk Müller pulling through the pack, trying to get through the Alfas and the Volvo. But it just wasn't quite enough gap which he'd opened out, and Dirk's able just to reel him back in again, having a quicker lap time, and just made the move. I think that De Simone, like you said, just he knew that he wasn't going to be able to hold them back, so just let him through and try and keep that gap now to the next cars behind.
Well, sensible driving, and he earned himself that place in the lead by some storming driving through the first race as well. De Simone qualified himself in 10th place, but fought his way up the order into 6th to get that pole position start for race 2, and plenty of time out front for himself and for BMW Team Spain. Now, Rydell in 3rd place in the Volvo, and the S60, as we said, second quickest of all in the morning warm-up, just 0.2 of a second behind Fredrik Ekblom, who started on pole for race 1. And the Volvo in 3rd place, holding off this man's teammate, Dirk Müller's teammate Jörg. There is Jörg Müller, and he seems to be able to hang it right with the Volvo, Jamie, but not quite able to make the move. Again, he has to duck back in there in the inset picture into that right-hand, left-hand combination. He just wasn't close enough to risk anything.
it's again, like we've said before, it's just so tricky to be able to make a move on this circuit because it is just purely so tight. But I think if the BMW just sits there, you can see that Ricard's just locking the wheel then. He's obviously pushing very, very hard to try and keep Jörg behind. If Jörg just keeps putting some pressure on Ricard, then it's possible that Ricard may run wide on a corner, just allowing Jörg to go through.
Entirely so. And Muller having done exactly that in Anderstorp a fortnight ago, in different conditions and on a different racetrack, but through the tight and twisty stuff, the BMW had the advantage over the Volvo. And again, as we look from Nicola Laurini's viewpoint, you saw the BMW all over the back of the Volvo's bumper there. Wouldn't be at all surprised if Jörg Muller switched the headlights on if you didn't see the paint start to bubble off the back of the Volvo. He's so close. Nicola Laurini in 5th place here in round 12 of the European Touring Car Championship. Points leader Fabrizio Giovanardi nowhere, out on lap 1. Still haven't seen a replay of that incident, so can't tell you who...
Jörg's quick there.
Yes, he is quick. Can't tell you who put him off.
No move.
No move successfully through there, but Laurini under pressure as well, further back from Jordi Genet as well, so Laurini might go first. Oh yes, Laurini really under pressure all over the curbs there, Jamie, and that sealed his fate. I think Genet must pass him now.
I think he's probably going to get him here, yes, he's on the inside, and he's through.
So Laurini all over the curbs, and that perhaps a sign that the tyres are finally giving up. He just didn't allow enough of a run on the inside curb for the understeer that he picked up through the corner. Well, Laurini never, ever gives up. Let's see if he can come back at Genet here. But let's watch him onto the straight. Genet uses all the road on the exit, but Laurini trying to use that engine power of the Alfa Romeo to come back at him. Again, Rydell keeping the line rigidly, and Jörg Muller really unable to find an extra width.
This section here is where the BMW is very, very strong, but you can see that Rydell, he's definitely cute to that. He stays to the inside now, going down to this next left-hander, which just really blocks the position for Jörg. Oh, he's moved over a little bit more this lap than the lap before.
Well, again, you know, these long, constant radius corners, they've got a brake on the way into them, and that starts to push the nose out wide. The BMW can get into the throttle and start to push the tail out to balance it and slide it four square, but with the front-wheel drive cars, as you get onto the power, it just continues to push the nose out a little bit, and that's the big problem, is you've got to, as the race carries on, allow for more and more understeer and aim further and further inside the corner, in the corners where you're really picking up the understeer, to try and keep the car's nose in tight, because what happens is if you don't, if you just go for the normal racing line, the car starts to wash out, suddenly you find there's a BMW where you should be, and that's the end of it. Now here, let's see if Jörg Muller is down the inside. We'll know from the line. No, Rydell goes for the curve, and he certainly wouldn't have done if there was a BMW alongside. And further back behind Tommy Rustad, here comes Tom Coronel with Frederick Ekblom behind him, and there is Giovanardi, so back in the race. Well, I said Laurini never gives up. Giovanardi's not the kind of guy who'll go out and throw his toys out of the pram in the pits either. And doesn't seem, well, there's a little black mark on the left front bumper. Doesn't seem to be much wrong else with the car. So I guess he got off the grass and is fighting his way back up the order now. But he's still a long way out of the points.
That's good, as long as, you know, the main thing is that he is on the road. He's able now to try and move forwards again. Because looking at the start, having not seen the replay, he did tend to go off at quite a rate, so lucky not to make any damage there on the car.
Now, just as we were seeing him, we missed the ultimate move as Ricard Rydell's Volvo finally ran out of grip in the final corner, and Jörg Muller did get through. So that change of place, obvious there.
Not good news for De Simone.
Not good news for De Simone, no, who is in second place, we'll remind you. So are we looking now at another Schnitzer BMW 1-2? Yes, I think we very probably are. Jörg Muller in third, Fabrizio De Simone in second place, and still, well, enough laps left to get it done. 9 laps. So that is plenty of time, I think, for Jörg Muller to get through. What about Genet behind Rydell? As you say, with Laurini and particularly with Giovanardi, even though he was spun off at the beginning of the race, you're certainly not going to get any points if you go to the pit lane. The only way to have any chance is to be out on the track. That's absolutely right. And the way this race has gone, there's nothing at all to say that all the cars in front of you are going to finish, because it is a tight, twisty track and the racing's very close. So you're never going to win anything if you're in the pit lane.
Interesting now to see how quickly Jorg, if he can, pull up on De Simone. We know that Dirk Muller started with new tyres, so obviously that helped him a bit, but just catching in the top of the picture then, I could see that Jorg is already actually right on the back of De Simone, so it's probably not long before we see him try and challenge in for second place.
Now, the new tyre deal is exactly down to how you run your qualifying. You can use a set of new tyres in qualifying if you want an absolute banzai pole lap, but it does mean you only have one set of tyres left for the 2 races. What Dirk Muller was referring to on the grid, as Jamie's just mentioned, his new set of tyres, is he used just one set for qualifying and lived with whatever time he could get on those, traffic, no matter what. And that means that he's got a new set for race 1 and then a new set for race 2. And that's a choice that all the drivers have. They've got 3 sets for the weekend. They can use them as they wish. But it means that the BMWs, looking perhaps at being further back on the inverted grid for race 2, already thinking ahead as De Simone comes under real pressure from Jorg Muller, exits the chicane still in front, but Jorg Muller, I think, will, if he gets hooked up, and he is, will be able to pass him before the end of the straight. We'll watch it from Rickard Rydell's viewpoint.
Having a look.
He is, and De Simone again on the outside line, I think will be forced to let him go. If Muller is even alongside, he will have to let him through, and he does. So Rydell closing on De Simone, and Rydell, I think, sniffs a Schnitzer 1-2 with a Volvo Chaser, don't you reckon?
It's quite interesting, just actually, it looked relatively easy for the Schnitzer cars just to go through there on De Simone, so it's looking like the Schnitzer cars have definitely got a good balance, certainly got some good traction exiting onto the straights at the moment and being able to just carry that little bit more speed to make the move.
Well, Dirk Muller way clear now. Jorg Muller, I don't think will catch him. Don't think he's got very much in terms of lap speed to offer his teammate. There's really nothing at all between them in terms of ability and pace here. But De Simone in 3rd place and Rydell all over the back of him. So the leader's going forward as De Simone comes backwards. Rydell safely ahead of Genet. De Simone looking, well, his podium position here, I think, increasingly precarious, Jamie.
Rickard is he's having a very good run. Certainly now putting some pressure on De Simone. Could be very difficult maybe to make a move, but who knows? We may well see it.
Well, he'll know where the BMW is vulnerable, and that's off the end of the back straight into that right-left sequence, which is one of the only sort of turning in on itself corner sequences on the track where there is room to get wheel-to-wheel with somebody on the way in. Certainly isn't here at the chicane. The long, sweeping run up to that back chicane certainly doesn't encourage going around the outside. That really is just almost aiming yourself at the barriers. Rydell, well, let's see if he can make a lunge. Maybe not this lap, but he needs the traction off that corner coming onto the back straight, and that's where the BMWs we've seen in the past have been particularly strong against the front drive cars. But I would say that he will not give up this. I think he's got a very good chance, and here he comes down the inside.
I was just going to say, looking at De Simone's car, it's certainly moving around quite a lot. I was wondering maybe he's pushed the tyres a little bit, maybe too hard at the first part of the race. Possibly damage them a little bit because they're not looking too good at the moment. The car's certainly moving around a lot more than Dirk and Jorg Muller's car. Certainly sliding when he's trying to get on the traction on the exit of the corners.
Quite possible that he will have used a second set in qualifying, having used a first set maybe to learn the circuit, having never been here before. Now, not many of the drivers have, but maybe Rydell, with all his experience, will have... he is pushing indeed. Maybe Rydell will have kept a second set for race 2, knowing that the Volvo would be up against it with all the BMWs, and you're right, it's quite De Simone's car moving around a lot. That might just be enough to hold the balance, perhaps, at a fairly even keel. And given that, an even playing field, I have to say I fancy Rydell over De Simone a little. No disrespect at all to De Simone. He's been showing very strongly here this weekend, the Italian. But Rydell and the Volvo, pretty mean combination. Now this is where it's really key for Rydell to get good drive out of here. And again he has, but it's not enough. I don't think he'll be close enough to make a move. And having seen how well balanced the Schnitzer BMWs are through these couple of corners, maybe that's not where he's actually going. Maybe this is part of his closing up routine for the next right-hander, the one that feeds onto the start-finish straight, because that's where he's looked particularly at the inside of De Simone's car in the last couple of laps. And again, he's inside him in his contact. Well, that was a little foolish there for Fabrizio to close the door, because Rydell was on the inside and partly ahead, and the only thing that's ever going to happen is that you're going to spin off across the nose of the car that's coming up from behind.
Very tricky situation. Ricard certainly made the lunge there. De Simone probably knew it was coming because he had a look on the lap before.
But he went for the apex again.
Yeah, just
same deal.
Unfortunate for De Simone, but you know, good move there by Ricard.
Yeah, good move, and cleanly pulled off as well until the almost inevitable contact there. Oops, Ruberti is off, as we were just watching for a moment there. The battle between Frederick Ekblom and Tom Coronel. Now the two Spanish team cars on the last lap are still ahead of Nicola Larini, and I couldn't quite see whether Jordi Genet had got in front of Fabrizio De Simone, but it looks like the result of race 1 is going to be the same as result of race 2. Dirk Muller, Jörg Muller, Ricard Rydell, 1, 2 and 3. And a very different scenario to the previously all-dominant Alpha contests that we've seen, well, through certainly the first 4 rounds of the series.
Certainly looking good for the championship for the remainder of the year as well. It's going to close the gap now to Giovinardi, so looking for some exciting races, I think, for the remainder of the season.
Well, I wouldn't say that the balance has swung completely in favour of BMW, but then I'm not wearing a red Alfa Romeo shirt, so any Alfaholics will certainly be saying that. But I think it certainly has evened up the playing field a little, and we were definitely looking for that, because the results haven't reflected some pretty exciting racing up until now. Win number 2 then for Dirk Muller, second place again for Jörg Muller. And now the Schnitzer team know what the GTA Alfa Romeo racing team have had so many times this season, what it's like to win 1-2 in both races. Ricard Rydell, 2 third places. That's pretty much as good as Volvo could have hoped for from this weekend. And Larini and Giovinardi, well, it was always going to be their worst race weekend, but they stuck to their guns. A good deal from both of them. Giovinardi coming home in 11th place. I think Dirk Muller will have stripped by the time he gets round to the pits. He's got his gloves off already, saluting, and the German public who've come out and braved the elements. Not that it's been particularly cold and wet, but still not as glorious as it was at Donington for the British Motorcycle Grand Prix. They will have been thoroughly buoyed up, as will the German BMW dealers, by the victories here. So BMW Schnitzer, the BMW Team Deutschland cars, first and second in both races, and impressive racing as well. It certainly didn't come as easy as perhaps you might think just looking at the results sheet. Genet ahead of De Simone in the end. Good result for the Spanish BMWs, and Nicola Larini in 6th place, so he does get a point, closes the gap by another 1 on Fabrizio Giovinardi. And behind them, Villemille's Privateer Alpha, as he started in 7th place. Coronel winning his battle of the front row men with Freddie Ekblom, front row men from row 1, and Tommy Rustad behind them in 10th place. Well, we'll be back with more from Oschersleben in just a second. Stay with us here on Eurosport. Welcome back to Oschersleben. The fans thrilled by 2 great European touring car races. Rounds 11 and 12 of the championship had the same result, with the Schnitzer BMWs first and second ahead of Ricard Rydell's Volvo. But as we've seen so many times this season, the results don't tell the whole story. Let's catch up with Dirk Muller for all the inside gossip.
Dirk Muller, it seems that it's the beginning of the winning season for the BMW.
I think now my season starts. I mean, I'm really happy, and I didn't know that I would have won 2 races this weekend. I thought maybe pole and maybe 1 race, but both races, I have to say congratulations to Schnitzer and BMW Germany. It's really great job, and tonight we will have big party.
Do you think that you can still win the championship?
I mean, I think Giovinardi got out in the 2nd race, and now championship is getting a little bit closer. We have 4 rounds left, so it's 8 races, 80 points. Everything can be done. So I need to speak to my engineers, to the BMW engineers, that we get a bit more horsepower for Spa. Then I will think that we're going to be in the first 3, I guess.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Interesting then, Jamie, to say that BMW looking for a bit more horsepower from Spa. Maybe they too have yet to fully exploit their extra few revs. But this track of Oschersleben, well, it could have been purpose-made for rear drive cars, and where better for BMW to score a double 1-2 victory. So, there you go. Dirk Muller closes the gap on the championship leader Fabrizio Giovanardi. As he says, anything's still possible, but it does mean that one or other of the BMW drivers pretty much has to win everything from here on in. Giovanardi still on 84 points. Larini gets closer on 66. Dirk Muller eases ahead of Jörg, 53, so the gap 31 points with 80 on offer. Well, it's still going to be a tough job for the BMW drivers. And Rickard Rydell, probably the only other driver really in the hunt, the Volvo man in the top 5 as well. We'll catch up with him in a moment and see what he thought of round 11 and 12 here at Oschersleben.
Rickard Rydell, you have a third position, but it was the on-track battle with the BMW and not the Alfa now.
Well, yeah, FIA has given them half a second, so it's really a bit difficult for us. I think otherwise we could have a really good chance being ahead of the Alfas here at Oschersleben. But it's quite good fighting with the Müllers instead of the Alfas. It's a little bit nicer.
And do you like Spa, the next race?
Yeah, I think Spa is very good. It's a very nice circuit, and I just don't know how we're going to perform there. I think we've made some improvements on the car. The engine is a little bit better than it was earlier in the season, so I think we could do quite well there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just saying to Jamie off air, I quite fancy the Volvos at Spa. I think it will be Volvo, Alfa Romeo and maybe BMW mingling at the race at Spa. And that, of course, supporting the Spa 24 Hours, which is the race after this in the FIA GT Series. So, that's round 11 and 12. Still 8 races left in the European Touring Car Championship. And the championship very much up for grabs and more alive than ever. Now then, we turn our attention to later on this evening, 6 o'clock on British Eurosport, 1900 Central European Time. We'll be bringing the highlights of round 6 of the FIA GT Championship. Lister starts on pole. Can they claim another win? Will Ferrari win again? Will the Vipers strike back? Will the Porsches dominate again in the NGT class? You can find out all this evening, 6 o'clock on British Eurosport. Before then, it's Bastille Day on the Tour de France, Stage 8. And this perhaps the most important day for a French rider to try and claim that elusive stage victory. They're in the heart of Brittany on the longest stage so far. Stay with us here on Eurosport and pick up all the action with David Duffield and Stephen Roach. Until later, it's...
With LG Electronics, digitally yours. That was the LG Super Racing Weekend with
Yokohama, power of performance.